Why do ghosts always put their hands on the window? It's Halloween, everybody! So continuing the list of horror film recommendations, we have Martyrs. This film is probably the closest on the list to being a horror masterpiece. The cinematography is next to flawless, the acting is amazing and the story is great. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll keep this short. It's not just violence for the sake of it. All of the violence is in service of the story. If you're looking for a really intense and horrific movie, you should check this out. It's deeply disturbing and some of the scenes will stick with you for days. It's important to note that there was an American remake in 2015 and you need to avoid it. The first 40 minutes are incredibly boring, and while the last act is alright, it really is a pale imitation that loses all meaning behind the original story. It's almost like Disney tried to make a horror movie. Now we move on to The Fly. This is another one I thought might be too obvious, but I'm always surprised people haven't seen it. It's a remake of The Fly from 1958. That's right, I'm recommending a remake.
Oh my God!
So for those who don't know, the story is about how Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis have to overcome the embarrassment of both having the same haircut. They face many challenges as they struggle to be socially accepted for the hairstyles they identify with. They tackle grumpy men in suits and have to risk it all in an arm wrestle at a seedy bar. While this film is more science fiction than horror, it really does have some horrific moments. It's a perfect example of how a movie without CGI can work. The makeup is at the height of the 80s practical effects boom, but that's not to say The Fly has nothing else to offer. If you move beyond the special effects, you'll find a deeply personal story. The dialogue is written really well with a sort of snappiness to it.
What am I working on? I'm working on something that'll change the world and human life as we know it.
Change it a lot or just a bit?
And it's arguably Jeff Goldblum's best performance.
You're jealous!
This really is a great film and it's well worth your time. Next we have Ghostbusters, the new one. That really was a horror film. That was a joke, and so was what I just said. In 1975, Jaws was released into cinemas. 15 years later, we got Arachnophobia. For years we've been treated to animal horror movies, and scraping the bottom of the barrel we have Slugs.
Big, they're gigantic! Damn thing bit me!
This film is so stupid and incompetent, it's hilarious.
Just maybe we're dealing with a mutant form of slug here, a kind that eats meat. Ha!
What do you do when you've got something stuck in your glove? Chop your hand off, of course. Somehow the slugs can drag a dead body away. And it even has a generic scientist man. Some scenes that are supposed to be shot in the same location are clearly using different sets.
Son of a bitch!
Obviously I'm not suggesting you watch this if you want a good horror film, but if you want to laugh, give this one a watch.
I'm telling you, you're nuts.
We'll declare a health emergency. I'll take full responsibility.
You ain't got the authority to declare happy birthday.
Next we have The Little Shop of Horrors, which is an American horror comedy musical film. This is another classic that I always find people haven't seen. It's not scary in the slightest, even though it fits nicely into the horror genre. This film is a lot of fun and the songs are memorable. None of the sets look real and instead they intentionally look like a Broadway musical. I'd say this is easily one of Rick Moranis' best performances, and it has a lot of other great comedians in it like John Candy and Bill Murray.
Hi everybody, it's Weird Wink Wilkinson laughing and scratching at you. How's everybody doing today?
Steve Martin plays an arsehole dentist who loves inflicting pain on people.
People will pay you to be inhumane.
The animatronics and puppetry work is fantastic, and I wish more films would put this much effort into creating their monsters.
Does it have to be human? Does it have to be mine? Where am I supposed to get it?
So next there's Dog Soldiers, which was written and directed by the same guy who made The Descent, which is also on my list. It follows a group of soldiers on a training mission in Scotland. They eventually meet a civilian and end up in an old house in the middle of nowhere. Dog Soldiers has my favourite designs of werewolves to date. Some story beats and certain plot elements share similarities with Predator, with Dog Soldiers instead being a small budget British horror film. There's werewolves, guns, and people die. It's a fun time and you should watch it.
Lycanthropes.
You what?
That's werewolves to you and me.
You're taking the piss. What, you mean like full moon, silver bullets, and eyebrows that join in the middle?
Next on the list is The Man Who Laughs, which is a silent film from 1928. While this isn't technically a horror movie, the nature of the filmmaking is so alien to modern audiences that it has a creepy, surreal quality to it. The story follows the main character who was disfigured into having a permanent grin and now works at a travelling circus. He was the inspiration for the Joker in the Batman universe. They also have a dog called Homo.
Ha! Gay!
Don't let the silent nature of the film put you off. While I understand it's not for everyone, at its core The Man Who Laughs is an incredibly moving story, and I strongly recommend that you give it a look. Now we have Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. I wasn't really sure if I should recommend this one. It's not a horror movie at all, although it does contain some gore. It's essentially a comedy and the plot is as predictable and formulaic as they come. What I did like was the comedy they lay over the generic framework and the commentary it makes on the horror genre.
That sick fuck, he's making her dig her own grave.
The story is basically the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from the perspective of the hillbillies. The humour isn't incredibly smart or witty, but I really enjoyed how the hillbillies' actions were misunderstood to be aggressive.
Whatever you say, just smile and laugh. That shows confidence.
Smile and laugh. You guys, going camping?
The Witch is our next film on the list. This is another film that comes close to being a masterpiece.
Bah, 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 bah. Black Phillip Sif, you are wicked.
Something that small budget films tend to do is try to keep everything inside. Shooting outside presents a lot more difficulties because there's more variables to account for, and smaller budget movies don't have the money to deal with these problems. Much like It Follows, The Witch really puts the effort in and shoots a lot of scenes outside, and does so without any noticeable errors. When you have films with over $150 million budgets that still have blatant outdoor consistency errors, it really is nice to see movies with $2 or $3 million budgets that put in the hard work and do it right. What I loved about this film was just how creepy it was.
What makes you think she's a witch? Well, she turned me into a newt. A newt. I got better.
The witch spends a lot of time developing an unnerving and atmospheric sense of dread that permeates through the entire film. The story follows a New England family who leaves their village to live on an isolated homestead. This is another one that leans on the psychological aspects and isn't for the people that had moaned about nothing happening. The Witch is a fantastic film and you really should give it a watch. Last on the list we have Eraserhead. I'm not sure how well known this is. I don't get out much. It's a black and white film from 1977. While it has a lot of the hallmarks of a horror movie like the look and the sound, it's so surreal and abstract it almost transcends the genre. The story follows Henry as he looks after his deformed child. It's so weak and sickly I couldn't help but feel sorry for the poor thing. While it's not scary, it's incredibly disgusting and deeply disturbing. There's such a weird mood to the whole film. Whenever people talk, there's long pauses between lines.
It's Henry, isn't it? Yes.
A lot of scenes have an eerie ambient noise to them, and the main character has a constant look of worry or confusion on his face. This film is very slow and goes long stretches without dialogue. The first line isn't spoken until 10 minutes in. Eraserhead is completely crazy and I've never seen anything like it. It's so disturbing, it's like watching someone's nightmare, and it's so bizarre I'm not even sure what it all meant. So there's my list of horror films that you should take a look at. If you do watch any of them, please come back and let me know what you think.
Trick or treat?
What does that mean?
It means you give us some cash. No sweets, no credit cards.
Why?
Because it's the end of October.